What's going on, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here. Welcome to day 327 of the 365-day graphic novel review challenge. Today, I want to talk to you about X-Men 92, Volume 2, Lilapalooza. This collects issues 6 through 10 of the X-Men 92 series. This is the final volume of that series. It is written by Chris Sims and Chad Bowers, with art by Alti Firman-Saya, Corey Hamsher, Matt Milla, and Dono Sanchez Almara. And this feels like everyone involved with this series thought that they maybe had longer on this series than what they did. It feels like they were introducing subplots left and right in Volume 0 and Volume 1, and then they found out a couple issues into this volume that they were going to be ending with issue 10, and so they had to wrap everything up. And despite that, everything here works pretty well. They did a much better job tying in all these loose subplots than I thought they would, and that is not a diss on the quality of the stories that we've been getting with this series. I really loved Volume 0. I liked Volume 1 quite a bit, just not as much as Volume 0. So I have loved this series since the beginning, but I wasn't sure that they were going to be able to take like 5 or 6 different subplots and tie it all together and make it all work. And they were able to do that pretty well. I do wish that they were able to go a little longer. I wish this series could have lasted another 5 issues so that they could have more slowly gotten to the point that they got to at the end of this volume. It feels a little rushed, even though all of these subplots do make sense once you consider what all has happened in this series. They're able to take Apocalypse and tie that into the Games Master and all the upstarts who were introduced in Volume 1, and that was an homage to something that was going on in the X-Men comics of the early 90s, where you had this guy called the Games Master, and all these people like Trevor Fitzroy, the Von Strucker twins, Cortez, and Shinobi Shaw. They were all trying to kill the X-Men, and they were making a big game out of it. And that was an element that was introduced in Volume 1, and then basically I had forgotten about it because once they introduced the character of Alpha Red in Volume 1, you basically forget about this game and the Games Master. Well, they bring all that back here in this volume, and then they put a little bit of a twist on it, tying that to Apocalypse in a way that I thought was kind of cool. They bring back Cassandra Nova and Joseph, the clone of Magneto, and that was something that was teased at the end of Volume 0. They bring back that in a way that makes sense. You've got a new element that's introduced in this book, a group of Brood who are mutants, and they are basically trying to ask the X-Men to help protect them, and we find out that they are being hunted down by the Shi'ar Imperial Guard. That is the one part of this book that feels like it was kind of left hanging a little bit. I'm wondering if they found out that this series was going to be canceled after they had already started the storyline where the X-Men meet this group of mutant Brood, because that kind of doesn't get tied up like everything else in the series does. At the end, they go with Abigail Brand, who is the leader of SWORD, and that is an element that I like quite a bit, because Abigail Brand was introduced in the 2000s, long after X-Men the Animated Series was done and over with, and they're basically introducing the 90s version of Abigail Brand here, and she looks like she came right out of the 90s. She looks like she would be a huge fan of Nirvana or some kind of grunge band, and I really like the way that they designed her here. But that's the one thing here that I feel like maybe they were in the middle of doing that, and then they found out, hey, we're going to be canceled with issue 10. We need to go ahead and wrap everything up. And like I said, I wish this had gotten, if anything, just a couple of extra issues, so this didn't feel so rushed at the very end. The ending is pretty neat, but I do wish we could have seen more of what they would have done after this point in the series. I'm curious if they would have ended this storyline this way if they were going to keep going, because this ends in a way where it seems like there's nowhere you can go after this ending. I don't want to spoil it, and even that I think is vague enough that I'm probably not spoiling anything by saying that, but this ending, it is something that I've seen before in a few other series, but I don't mind. I think this is still very interesting, the way that they handle everything at the end here, but I like this quite a bit. I really like how everything ties together. I just wish they had a few more issues to make it a little bit more organic so that they weren't racing so fast to tie everything together at the end. But overall, I like this book. I really like this series. If you are a fan of X-Men the Animated Series, and I mentioned a few days ago, I'm not really a fan of X-Men the Animated Series, but if you are, you definitely need to check this series out. This is definitely something you will love. If you are a fan of X-Men stories from the 90s, or at least you have a nostalgia for X-Men stories from the 90s, but maybe critically you understand that those stories weren't very good, then you definitely need to check this out, because this is definitely cashing in on the nostalgia of the 90s while providing better stories, in my opinion. Anyway, I really like this series. I'm kind of disappointed that it didn't get to go on a little longer. Those are my thoughts on X-Men 92 Volume 2 Lilapalooza. I hope that you guys liked this video, and if you did, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I will be back tomorrow with a different video. In the meantime, you guys have a great rest of the day. Catch you later.